Welcome to Voodoo Whiskey Gaming, and this is my late review of Crackdown 3. I played it on the Xbox One, it's also available on the PC. Yeah, I know, it's been out for quite a while, but I kind of wanted to see whether or not it really was as bad as it could possibly be. So the story goes, you and a bunch of other agents from the agency are heading to an island. Its name doesn't matter, really the story doesn't matter. Basically, they all get fucked and you have to go and save the fucking island. If I sound wildly uninterested about the story in this game, it's because it's not interesting. They had the opportunity to inject it with a lot of character and like give the story something, and they didn't. They completely wasted Terry Crews, the same guy who's always been the boss as the boss again, and it doesn't add anything, and the story is so generic that it doesn't really matter. As for the audio, the sound effects and music were pretty good. Like, it's not really noticeable, it's honestly quite forgettable, which is unfortunate. The voiceover work is fine, it all works well. I gotta say, the guy who does the boss, he has some good, he adds a bit of personality to it. There's another character named Echo, and really a generic character, and the voice actor didn't do anything to make it any better. I will say, and it's not really the voice actor's fault, but it goes into the audio section, man, you just hear way too much from Echo. Echo, out of the two people speaking into your character's head, is the one who's like, oh, you need to do this for this objective, you need to do this for this objective. And the problem is, when you're in the middle of a firefight, she still tells you that shit, and it just gets obnoxious to hear it over and over again. So as for the gameplay mechanics, this is another one of those over-the-top third-person action shooters, and it feels a lot like Crackdown. But not as well done is the weird thing. The third game should not feel like a shittier version of the first game. There's all the running, jumping, superpowers being ultra strong, all the weapons that you're used to. The problem is, none of it feels or works as well as it should, considering how long this game was in development, considering that it was all done better in its first iteration. Driving is completely pointless in this game. It's really such a small map, and your character jumps so high and moves so fast that driving becomes useless, especially since you're seeking out the agility orbs and the secret orbs. Driving around becomes incredibly useless because of that. As for the shooting, it's not great. It just doesn't work very well. There's a lock-on mechanic that just locks onto all the wrong enemies, basically. You have a very small open world, and quite frankly, it's kind of boring. Yeah, there's a variety of missions, but it's a small variety of missions. Then there's the side things like the agility races, the glider races, etc. But those are kind of boring, and some of them are just kind of shit. Yeah, you can level up your character and become much bigger and more powerful, yada yada, but there are some things that just don't scale with that, and generally the amount of damage you take in boss fights is one of those things. I personally found the very final boss fight to be really poorly designed, and it was incredibly frustrating. I finally got through it, but it was not pleasant. As for the controls, oh god, why? They're just so overly sensitive that doing a lot of the platforming that comes with this game and doing the super jumps is really twitchy and unpredictable. It's not just the camera that is overly sensitive. I even tuned my camera down and it was still really sensitive. But it's also your character's movement. It's not super consistent, and when you're trying to make some of the more precise jumps for some of the side objectives, it becomes very difficult. I guess I could say that the controls are well mapped and responsive, so that's a good thing, except for there's no fucking reload button, which is insane. If there is, it's also not listed on the control menu. It may sound silly, but it is a huge complaint that I had, especially in boss fights, because there were times where I could duck away and I would love to reload and be able to go out with another full mag, but I couldn't. Then, lastly, the graphics. I gotta say, I actually did like the way the game looked for the most part. I did absolutely despise the fact that you get a great opening cutscene, and then pretty much all other cutscenes are told in those semi-static image, pseudo-animated way. Not full-blown awesome CGI graphics, but hand-drawn, but not well done. That was just kind of disappointing when it came to the cinematics. As for the rest of the world, I actually liked the way the world looked. I do think they could have done more with your character as they max out their stats and grow. I remember in the original Crackdown, as you like gained your stats and got them bigger, your character actually kind of morphed a bit. So I think it would have been cool had they bothered to do that with this. Otherwise, I liked the way the world looked. I like a lot of the designs in like the city, the vehicles, etc. One thing that was really annoying was there was very rarely daytime, it seemed. It seemed like a lot of nighttime, which made some of the missions more difficult than they needed to be. Again, the platforming ones. When it's pitch black and you're jumping onto a black platform, it's kind of hard to know where the fuck you're supposed to be landing. Overall, it's not a horrible game, but it's also far from a great game. It doesn't do anything to justify its own existence. And let's face it, they really wasted someone like Terry Crews. I mean, why even bother bringing him in when they didn't utilize him? We're talking about a guy who's known for having an overabundance of character being put into a game that completely lacks character. And one of the things that really bites it on the ass is we've seen so many of these games where a character becomes super powered and whatnot, but with so much more personality. With better stories, better ways of doing pretty much everything than Crackdown 3 does. To put it simply, yeah, it's a skip. It deserves an absolutely mediocre place in the world, and it really doesn't warrant its own existence. Okay, so in the comments below, why don't you tell me what your favorite game is where a character like gains superpowers and whatnot? I mean, I really loved the original Crackdown, and there have been some other great ones since. And as always, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please hit that like button, and if you like what I'm doing in general, share, subscribe. Have a good one.